my chicklets, thank you for stopping by. Today we will be reading Day 7 in our Soulmate September series, Nothing Important to Lose. This is going to be your traditional Red String of Fate story. The Red String of Fate was a single string tied around your pinky. It was not a real string, just an illusionary representation of your connection to your soulmate. One string, one soulmate. That was how it was supposed to be. That was what Janus was expected to have. Then why were there two brightly colored strings tied around his pinky? His parents didn't have an answer for that either, and they had always told him to keep it a secret. As a kid, he listened, but it was always a question in the back of his mind. Was he supposed to ignore one of his soulmates when he found them? It would be much easier to ignore both and let them find each other. That's what he had decided when he was younger. Janus walked up the steps to his office, hiding his feelings and intentions like his parents expected him to do, but he wasn't sure how long he could keep up this charade. Councilman Idetech, can we get a statement about the increase in strange soulmate cases? The reporter shoved a microphone in front of his face, and he put on his usual charming smile, despite his distaste for her words. Strange, just like his own. His eyes flittered to the name on her press badge. Good morning, Martha. I would love to speak on that topic, but I fear I am not an expert on the subject yet. Would you permit me a bit longer while I study up on soulmates and how the connections are formed? After all, it would be ill-advised for me to talk about a topic that still has so much research being done, don't you think? The woman blinked, a light blush on her face. She was obviously mesmerized by his heterochromatic eyes, something he often used to his advantage. Yes, of course, she finally blurted out, taking a step back. Janus gave her another smile before turning and heading back into his office building, letting his smile fall slightly once he was inside the protection of his walls. People could be vicious and cruel. A simple slip could destroy everything, but people were also easy to manipulate most of the time. What was he supposed to do about the increase in strange soulmates? Especially considering that any historical evidence that this was actually normal would have been wiped in the purity movement. Janus suspected that these strange cases were not strange, but rather that society had fallen into a state of normativity that was toxic. He could help change political policies, but his position didn't currently give him the ability to change people's minds. Janus pulled at his gloves as he walked through the busy hallways, allowing his thoughts to once again take over. The gloves hid the string from him. He didn't know how, since the strings weren't even real, but he didn't know a lot about soulmate strings to begin with. No one did. Soulmate strings had been around for millennia, but figuring them out was no less confusing than explaining the beauty of a sunset to someone without sight, or the sound of a meadowlark to someone who couldn't hear. It was frustrating, because Janus would love to know why he had two strings attached to his finger. He had never even stopped to think about what he wanted in regards to his strings. He didn't have the time. Jaybird, I want you to meet someone. Janus was snapped out of his thoughts by one of the most interesting people he had ever worked with. Remus Prince was a spitfire. It was hard to predict what he was going to do next, but that's what made him a great strategist and marketer. And I, of course, totally have time for that. Janus's voice was heavy with sarcasm, but a light smile flittered on his lips. Remus knew that he would always make time for him. We will have to be quick, though. I have paperwork I need to get done. Nothing interesting anyway. This is my soulmate, Patton. Isn't he a scrumptious little cookie? Remus began to kiss and nibble at Patton's neck, who squirmed with a happy squeal. Remus, stop! His voice was soft and lilting, and Remus actually followed instructions. Janus was torn between being impressed that Remus was listening to someone other than him, being disappointed that Remus had found his soulmate, and being physically attracted to the new man that stood next to Remus. There were certain aesthetics about Remus that Janus liked, but it was nothing compared to the soft dimples and curly hair of Patton. He is very handsome, Remus. Janus held out his hand, and Patton happily took it, but his face screwed up in a look of confusion. Is there something wrong? No, it's just, my string looks like it goes towards your hand, but it doesn't connect. That's really strange. Patso, don't talk about strings, Remus said, grabbing Patton's hand and pulling him away quickly, but trying to be gentle. It's fine, Remus. Janus had schooled his face into a neutral expression, pulling his hand away and hiding it behind his back. He is your soulmate, and if you trust him, then I do not mind him knowing. Janus squared his shoulders. He had told a lot of people a lie, deciding it was best to let his two soulmates have each other while he focused on his career. Well, it was a partial lie. When I was in high school, I was caught in a fire that scarred much of my body. I heard about that. Patton's voice was soft and gentle, and Janus almost didn't want to lie to him. My hand was also badly burned, and I haven't been able to see my string since. A half-truth. Janus saw his strings only when he took the gloves off. A very rare event indeed. Patton covered his mouth in shock, leaving the three in silence until Remus broke it. He has really cool scars, though. Won't let me see the ones on his hands, but just look at his face. He's so handsome. Janus played it up, pretending that it was all just an act. Oh, you. He batted at Remus, but the blush on his face was real. Wait, if you can't see your string... come here. Does your other string also connect? Other string? You both have two? Patton blushed. Oops. Yeah, we both have two. What, you think one person can handle all of this? Remus had gotten distracted again, picking Patton up in a bridle hold, causing the other man to giggle. Janus couldn't help but smile as well. It was cute. I know that's not going to be a problem, right, Councilman Idatek? The way Remus said his name, a shiver wanted to run down Janus's spine, and for a brief moment he could see Remus dismembering him. Of course not, Ree. What goes on in your household is your business, and yours alone, as long as everyone is consenting. Remus smiled happily, slowly lowering Patton to the floor. But I must get back to work. He gave Patton a slight nod. Normally he wouldn't act so formal around Remus, but he had to make a good impression on Remus's soulmate. Yet the word hurt more than it should. He wanted to tug off his glove and run back to the pair, check to see if the strings united, if they were all meant to be together. But he couldn't get himself caught in a scandal like that. It was best he lied to himself. For now. The next month was a bit of a blur. Something was going on, and he didn't fully understand it. Patton seemed to have taken an interest in his private life because he was often being invited out by either Remus or Patton on small hangouts, as Patton liked to call them. Remus was very interesting, and he enjoyed having Remus around, so he wasn't against going on these hangouts, but something felt more like dates. Remus had always been a touchy person, but even Patton's hand would ghost over his own, and Janus was beginning to grow suspicious. Remus, Patton, I have obviously enjoyed your company, but can you explain why you two have been basically asking me out on dates for the past month? Patton and Remus looked at each other before Remus just burst out with, We think you're our third soulmate. Under the table, Janus gripped his hand tightly. He couldn't help but feel his heart flutter, and he desperately hoped to shove his feelings down. But we also knew that you can't really confirm that, Patton said, his voice much softer. So we thought we could just spend more time with you and see how things went. No strings attached. Patton gave Janus a weak smile at his attempt at a pun, and Janus wasn't sure if he should be angry or burst out laughing. They hadn't really lied to him. They were just hanging out as friends. The two of them just wanted more out of it. What did he want out of it? He had enjoyed the past month immensely. Chaos with Remus was always entertaining, but there was a softness of being around Patton that just felt like home. Did he want this? Did he want to risk his career for a life with these two people? I don't like it when people attempt to manipulate me. Sure, your intentions were nice, but still. He was more mad he hadn't caught on until now. No reason to ruin a good dinner, though. He smiled as the waiter came by and put their food in front of them with a nod. Though, you realize what will happen if it gets out, right? Patton nodded slowly, and Janus already knew that Remus didn't care. But I don't want society to tell me who I'm allowed to love, or how many. Patton frowned. Because it's not fair if I have to choose between soulmates. I want to love both of them. Janus was thankful that Patton was smart enough to keep his voice quiet, but he was also rattled by Patton's confession. He had always been told he would have to choose to keep up appearances, but here was someone who knew the dirty looks he would get from having two soulmates, knew how people would judge, and he just didn't care. Janus's fingers drummed against the table as he frowned and thought. It would be best for his career to keep up his charade, but would it be best for him emotionally? Having Patton and Remus around more often had been fun, and he had felt less stressed the entire month. He had already known that being around Remus was a great effect on his mood, but Patton had been too, and Janus hesitated. Was his position worth possibly losing these two? He was almost certain that they were all soulmates. It just felt right. What the hell? This isn't an election year, and I can win back the votes I lose. Janus began to take off his glove, showing Remus and Patton his hand for the first time. It was indeed covered in scars, but the first thing that both men noticed was the colored thread that connected Janus to each of them. Patton smiled happily, letting out a little squeal as he wrapped his fingers with Janus's. Really? You're going to give us a chance? Why not? I have nothing important to lose. Remus smirked, leaning over the table and pulling Janus into a heated kiss. You're going to regret that, boss man. I already do, Janus whispered with a light smirk on his face, reaching out to take Remus's hand. Thank you again for listening. This was Nothing Important to Lose, Day 7 in our Soulmate September series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful day.